It's Friday, so that means we are joined, as always, by NorthStar Bets' very own Steven Psihogios. Stevie, last night, what did the Toronto Maple Leafs do? They do what they do best, blow a third-period lead, but win in overtime. So, Austin Matthews got a hat trick. That's the good. But what were some takeaways you had from last night's game between the Leafs and Flyers?
Well, my takeaway is that this is a team it's very difficult to kind of judge where Sheldon Keefe is in terms of where he has this locker room. Because you see in that first period, William Nylander is not very good, and Keefe goes to talk to him. Nylander looks very frustrated, like, you're saying the same thing to me for the millionth time. And then all of a sudden they respond with a 3-goal second period. So I don't know whether this is a team that still is buying into what Sheldon Keefe is selling, or if they've sold out and it's just Austin Matthews is so good that he can make up for a lot of mistakes, or he just goes, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to go out and score 3. So I think it's very difficult to tell where they are as far as what they think of head coach Sheldon Keefe. But like you said, it was kind of your classic Maple Leafs win. A lead gets by them, but they're able to win it in overtime. They've been the overtime and shootout merchants for a lot of this year, and you got another one of those victories last night from Toronto.
What have you thought of Nylander's play so far? Because I feel like he's had another bad game. It's been a pretty poor stretch since he signed that contract. 15 games is 6 goals and 8 assists. And a game like last night, obviously the overtime winner is going to overshadow a lot of what he did. But personally, I just feel like he's fallen off completely in this last stretch. I just wonder if you feel the same.
I agree. He looks disinterested. And again, it makes you wonder, what was his interest in the first place? Was it helping this team win games, or was it to get the big contract? Because it's hard to ignore the correlation between his hot start to the season and now his tapering off. It's directly related to when he signed that contract. So he's a great player. He's a player that went on his game. He's arguably your second best player on the team if you're the Leafs. So you don't want to dig into him too much, because you've seen in the playoffs when this team has struggled, he's been the one of the top 4 that keeps it going. But it's definitely worth noting that as soon as they showed Nylander the money, he hasn't looked quite as into it. The pep is not in his step anymore.
But that's the thing. Like me and Albert discussed earlier, is that he's now making big boy money, so we have big boy expectations on him now, right? He's making the same amount of money or in the same area as a MacKinnon, a McDavid, a Draisaitl, whatever. He's in that tax bracket now, right? He's got to be held to that standard. And I was telling Albert off camera that he kind of has the best of the best life as a pro athlete. He's like the 10th and 15th best golfer in the world. He gets all the money, the financial rewards, he gets to cruise through, and he has no expectations, right? And that's the wrong way to go about it, especially if you're William Nylander, and especially if you're making that type of money in a market like Toronto, right?
Well, I think with Nylander, there's gonna be expectations, especially when one of these top guys has to go because they can't afford to keep all of them. So then it's gonna be like, okay, we're now going to compare Nylander. Let's say if it's Mitch Marner who ends up leaving Toronto at the end of next year, it's not going to be, okay, how is Nylander performing vis-a-vis Mitch Marner? And if he's not holding up his end of the bargain, Leaf fans are not going to be happy with Treliving, because this was the decision that he made to keep Nylander over Marner. So while now it is nice, once this team kind of takes its next form, which likely won't be with this entire core 4 together, there's going to be expectations, because now Treliving, he's the one responsible for making probably the biggest decision this team has made in a long time when it comes to contracts and the roster build, which was keeping Nylander over Marner, over Tavares, and over Matthews. I don't disagree with his decision to keep him over Marner. I think there's been a lot of frustration towards Mitch Marner from the Leafs fan base. And so to say that he shouldn't have kept Nylander over Marner, I think would be kind of backtracking a bit. But this is not the Nylander that the Leafs paid all this money for since he signed that deal.
Yeah, some may say it's unfair to compare him to McKinnon, McDavid, Matthews, yada, yada, yada. But like you mentioned, Justin, he's in that category. And if you're looking at what those players have done over the past 15 games, like I mentioned, Nylander 6 goals, 8 assists. McKinnon's got 10 and 14 assists. McDavid 7 goals, 20 assists. Pastrnak, 10 goals, 12 assists. Matthews, 15 goals, 6 assists. Mitch Marner, 8 goals, 13 assists. So, I mean, I understand that players and even superstars, the elite of the elite, go through these types of stretches. But I feel like guys like MacKinnon, McDavid, Matthews, Marner, they've been doing it for so long that you allow them that grace period, whereas with Nylander, you don't see that. And I just don't think with these other players, you don't see the drop-off in effort. And I think that's the more concerning thing. He can always overshadow his play for most of a game by making a talented, skillful play that he's getting paid to do. But once the effort starts to drop off, that's a real concern, man, especially where you're getting 92 sheets, like guaranteed money. You don't necessarily have to have that effort. Now it's on you to decide whether or not you want to play up to that number.
Yeah, and he was making Robin money before. Now he's making Batman money. So you cannot have Nylander. You can't have Nylander being the guy who steps up occasionally and makes a big play. He's got to be the guy that continually and consistently delivers. There's no more of that. You know what? He's probably the best value on the team because he's only making $7 million while these other guys are making their 11 plus. No, he's making, like I said, the Batman money now. He's got to take over. He's got to put two hands on the Batmobile and drive this thing forward. Otherwise, the team made a mistake if he can't do that.
Well, now we're talking about the Batmobile. Let's see where this Batmobile ends up as the Toronto Maple Leafs season. Where do they end up? So let's play a little game here. We're going to go around the horn. We'll start with you, Stevie, first. What's the most likely finishing situation for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Eastern Conference standings heading towards the playoffs?
I still think it's a third place finish in the Atlantic Division there. I still think they climb up over Tampa Bay. The Lightning have been good, but I want to see what they do at the deadline because you cannot underestimate the loss of Mikhail Sergachev. It's a huge loss on the back end, and that's a team that's really struggled defensively and in net. Andrei Vasilevsky really hasn't come back and turned back the clock and been vintage Big Cat. He's been good, but not great. So I still think the Leafs can climb into that third spot, and they probably play Boston or Florida. That's looking like the most likely outcome for them in the first round of the playoffs.
I think this is a death race until the end of the season for the Toronto Maple Leafs, probably making it into the last wild card, but let's be real. Detroit is not really falling off. If the Devils go out and get Jacob Markstrom, they're just missing a goaltender. That changes their season completely. I think the Islanders are a sneaky play based on the way that they're playing under Patrick Roy. I think they'll be there fighting till the end. And obviously you have the Lightning. Those are the teams that are involved. And you said it, not having Sergachev is huge, but they've been there before, and I think they can close out the season. For the Leafs, the playoffs aren't a lock, and I think they're going to have to play like some of their best hockey right now that we've seen in a long time for them just to make the playoffs. It's going to be tight.
See, I see what you guys are all saying. I think that, look, it's going to be a fight. They're not with Tampa to get the third and final spot in the Atlantic, and it's going to be a fight in the wild card. Like you said, I think all these teams, Toronto, Detroit, New Jersey, the Islanders, they all have positives, but they all have flaws too, right? They're all kind of the similar style of team. And you look at the goal differential, minus the Devils, they're all, fairly close in goal differential with one another. So I think the Leafs get the first wild card spot and then end up going to face off against the Rangers in the first round, where they're probably going to lose in 5-6 games. That's it. That's it.
I know it's crazy to think though that Toronto will probably spend the entire postseason never having home ice advantage, right? They're not likely going to get one of those top two spots in the Atlantic. And at that point, it's hard to pencil them in. Last year, they had home ice in the first two rounds of the playoffs. Yeah. This year, they probably don't get it at all.
You know what? Not necessarily a bad thing. One of the worst home records in the NHL right now. So,
but it's a different beast in the playoffs, like
I guess. I mean, Scotiabank. Let's be real.
But look, if they got to go to Boston or New York for the first two games of the first round series,
listen,
I could see them getting pumped.
If they're playing Boston, they're playing Florida. It doesn't matter what ice that they're on. Those teams are much better than the Leafs.
That is very true. That is very true indeed. It's all in due time. There's only one game on the NHL slate tonight.
Oh, what the hell?
The Carolina Hurricanes versus the Arizona Coyotes. The soon-to-be Salt Lake City, Coyotes, I think. But Stevie, give us your best bet for the only game tonight in the NHL.
Come on, give us a winner, Stevie.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to roll with the Hurricanes minus 1.5 goals. Look, I know Mullet Arena's been a tough place to play in, but the Yotes, they're just limping right now. They were pretty hot to start with Connor Ingram. He was playing well, and they were scoring enough. And Mullet Arena, it's been this kind of weird home ice advantage for Arizona all year, but as of late, it really hasn't played that way. and no Ingram in that. So to me, this is a Coyotes team that seems like they're crashing out. And Carolina, like they smelled blood in the water these last few weeks with the Rangers. The way they've been playing, they've kind of, they've picked it back up, but they were slowing down for a little bit. Carolina really elevated its game, and they're back in the mix. They're still trying to fight for that top spot in the Metro. So true. I know they got some work to do. They need these 2 points.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a Stadium Series weekend, too, out in New York. So it'll be a nice showcase there. And I'm sure next week we'll break it all down and have some more Leafs talk as well with you, Stevie. Take care, my friend, and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the weekend.